So negotiating teams from Ukraine and Russia are in Istanbul for the first direct talks between the warring sides in 3 years. The first discussions of the day have taken place between the US, Turkey and Ukraine. Both the leaders of Ukraine and Russia aren't attending. Volodymyr Zelensky had hoped the latest push towards peace would result in an unconditional ceasefire, but US President Donald Trump says a breakthrough is only likely after he meets Russian President Vladimir Putin. We have a team of correspondents covering the latest developments. In a moment, we'll speak to Zain Basrawi in Kyiv. We also have Yulia Shapovalova in Moscow. But first, let's go to Sinem Kosioglu. She's joining us live from Istanbul. So, Sinem, tell us what's been happening there already and what else we're expecting on Friday.
Once again, Istanbul is hosting peace talks, potential peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. And today it is the Turkish delegation and the US delegation overseeing these talks. In the early hours of the morning, a trio came together in Istanbul's Dolmabahce working office of the presidency. It was a US, Ukrainian and Turkish delegation. In the US delegation, there was the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and on the other hand, the newly appointed U.S. Ambassador, Tom Barrack, and the United States Special Representative to Ukraine, Mr. Kellogg, were present. In the Ukrainian delegation, Andriy Yermak, head of the presidential office, the Defense Minister, Rustem Umerov, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sabiha were present, and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan was the chairman of this meeting. And on the pictures we saw Turkish intelligence chief Ibrahim Kalın were there. Shortly ago, this trio meeting has been completed, and we are expecting a second round of talks to take place in the same venue. And that meeting will be among the delegations of Russia, Ukraine and Turkey. And it is about to take place like in half an hour. And ahead of this second round of talks, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is expected to do an opening speech, a short one, in order to summarize what has been going on since the morning behind closed doors. So because of the absence of the top leaders of both countries, many are hopeless about a potential result coming out from this meeting today. However, this is still a positive step towards a ceasefire, a potential ceasefire. And it happened before in Istanbul 3 years ago. Two sides agreed and were about to sign a draft deal. Despite both sides accuse each other of many things, still there is a hope for a peace, at least a potential ceasefire. Now, everybody, all media is waiting to hear what is going on inside the closed doors, behind the closed doors.
That is Sinem Kosioglu joining us live from Istanbul. And joining us from Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, is Zain Basrawi, where people will also be very eagerly following the talks. But how much hope do they have, Zain? Yes, the Russian and Ukrainian leaders aren't there, but as we were hearing from Sinem, the U.S. Secretary of State and also the U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine and Russia are there.
Well, Ukrainians have hope, certainly, but they are also practical. There isn't a great deal of optimism that these talks will yield an interim 30-day ceasefire, let alone a reasonable, realistic pathway to peace. And they point to the fact that Russia is carrying out talks while it is still dropping bombs on Ukrainian cities. And so that is no recipe for success. Overnight, we saw 112 drones, Russian drones, launched in areas that affected regions across Ukraine, including Odessa, Zhytomyr, Chernihiv, Mykolaiv, as well as the Kyiv region, including aerial attacks targeting the capital, Kyiv itself. There were reports this morning of debris from drones that had been shot down, setting fires, again, to civilian residential areas in Kyiv, in Odessa. And it is worth noting, what illustrates how busy a night it was, is that Ukraine's Air Force reports losing an F-16 during aerial defensive operations. The pilot ejected safely after guiding the plane to an unpopulated area, so there were no incidents of casualties or injuries reported, but this war carries on. And even if the two sides sit down to talk peace in Turkey, the fact of the matter is Russian operations continuing in Ukraine continue to widen this trust gap that was already so huge between both countries.
Zain Basravi joining us live from Kyiv. Thank you, Zain. Let's bring in Yulia Shapovalova. She's joining us live from Moscow. And Yulia, ahead of the talks, the Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson called Volodymyr Zelensky a clown. How seriously is Moscow taking these talks?
Well, Moscow is taking these talks quite seriously. We're learning that the Russian delegation is against the presence of US representatives at the direct talks between Russia and Ukraine. That's what we're hearing from the Russian side, while the US delegation in Istanbul won't meet the Russian representatives either. The talks between Ukraine and Russia, as well as Turkey, are scheduled to take place very soon, in about 30 or so minutes. Many say that the Russian delegation is a low-level delegation in terms of their diplomatic status, but the Russian side says that the representatives of the Defense Ministry and Foreign Intelligence Service from the Russian side, and those people can speak about a ceasefire and facilitate the ceasefire on the ground, which is vitally important for Ukraine in particular. Meanwhile, there are reports that the Russian army continues its offensive on the front. Meanwhile, Donald Trump said that he would meet with Vladimir Putin as soon as they could arrange this meeting. According to him, a solution could be found in 2 or 3 weeks. He's waiting for the results of the current talks between Russia and Ukraine, which haven't begun yet. The US president, we know, has completed his tour in the Middle East and hasn't visited Turkey. Well, it's hard to predict how these talks are going to go, but I mean, many here are really hopeful that the outcome will be more or less positive for all the sides.
Yulia Shapovalova live in Moscow. Thank you, Yulia.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.